Hello, Alexandra. Delighted to be chatting with you. Myself and Sreve Evans here.
Hi, Alexandra. Good to finally meet you.
Hello, hi gents. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, and you're on the Wirral like me, then I believe. So whereabouts are you on Wirral?
Oh, I'm up in the posh bit. No, I'm in Moore.
Yeah, you're next door to me. Then I'm in Mells.
Oh, you're in the posh bit then.
I'm in the posh bit, not you. I moved up here about a year ago from Bromborough, but yeah, I'm right on the coast. I mean, I can almost see the beach from where I am.
Oh,
It's great.
yeah. We moved here in October.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, from Tranmere.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So it's the first home we've owned. We bought a house. Great. Yeah.
Right, whereabouts roughly in Morton? I don't want to know exactly, obviously.
Not far from the cross.
Oh yeah. So you're near Lighthouse Way or further away?
Further away. On
Yeah.
the kind of the south side. If you're looking at the map of Morton, I always think of it as like a cross, isn't it? We're in the lower right hand quarter.
I know where you are. Yeah.
I know where you live.
It's ominous.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for geographical reasons, obviously. Just trying to get a picture in my head roughly, but yeah. But did you move? Well, the question was, did you move from Liverpool? But you didn't. You moved from Tranmere. Or did you live in Liverpool?
I grew up. I was born and grew up in Liverpool. I left when I was 18. Went away to uni in lived in Stoke-on-Trent for 5 years. Then I came to the Wirral with my then boyfriend, and we shared a house with a landlord in Seacombe. And then that's another story. And then
right
we
next to the ferry terminal.
Yeah, absolutely awful. We moved a couple of times, but we were living in Tranmere for like 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Hated it.
Really? Was it that bad? Were you close to the football ground or just in a bit of a rough area?
Actually, to be fair, the area we lived in started rough and then it actually improved. It was between the parks.
Oh, yeah.
Mersey Park and Victoria.
Mersey and Vicky, yeah, I know.
We were between those two. But the neighbours were all really nice. You know, everybody was lovely.
That's often the case, actually, isn't it? Yeah, it's often the case.
It's really quiet here. Really quiet. Can't believe it. We're so lucky.
Excellent. Yeah. I was just saying to Terry, it's normally very quiet here, but somebody's decided to have a barbecue next door and they've invited everyone. So there's about 30 people outside.
Oh no, and they've not invited you.
No, I've been out all day. I've been in Winsford all day at Cheshire. I came back to it and saw what was going on. I was like, oh, hope this didn't disturb our chat too much. As it happens, it's gone fairly quiet now, so we're all right.
I'll be eating the burgers.
So moving on slightly, you did a degree in fine art and sculpture. Have you carried on with these visible arts as a hobby then? Is that one of your hobbies, or is it writing groups, or what else? What do you do as a hobby?
No, I don't do art. I got my degree in sculpture, and then when we moved and we lived with the landlord, we couldn't do sculpture, obviously. I made life size. Like cute, like I worked in clay and plaster, so we couldn't do that. So I taught myself to paint, and I hated using oil paint. So then I taught myself to use acrylics, and I did that for a number of years. But then I discovered writing. I kind of fell into it by accident. But no, I don't paint anymore. No. I do. I sketch and I make maps for when I'm writing stories. Quite often, I like to, particularly the more fantasy-based one, I like to make maps of the world I'm building. So I have maps, and I also make maps for. I play Dungeons and Dragons, so I make maps.
Saw that.
Yeah, all that.
Alexandra, we read that you're a member of the Wirral Writers group. I saw it before that you gave a great mention in the acknowledgements in the Beneath the Skin book. How useful is being a member of this group for your writing?
I think belonging to a writing group is, I found it to be useful. And I think you basically you're meeting up with, like, you know, people of like a similar ilk, first of all, because it's a lonely activity. You're working on your own, which I really like. I really enjoy being on my own, and just escaping into my own world. It's you're learning skills as well as getting feedback, I think. So your expectations of what to produce begin to kind of increase in yourself. And also when you're listening to other people's stories, you hear you know, how they're actually producing their work and what it sounds like, because we have to read out every week. Every time we go, everybody has to read a piece of work that they've done, and it could be part of a greater story or it could be a short story, whichever. There's a word limit, but you learn to listen. You learn to listen to other people reading, and you learn to listen to other people critiquing your work. And I think that's really invaluable, to be able to listen and take on board. It doesn't mean to say you have to change what other people tell you to do, but to be able to take criticism is really, really, for anybody in the arts, it's super, super invaluable. So I found I've become a better writer, and I think that's what happens when you join these groups. We run it in-house competitions. We throw around ideas. We sometimes have a free writing session where somebody puts the timer on. Here's the theme, and off you go, right off the top of your head, start writing something. And I tend to sit there for about half of it just going, I can't think of anything to do. And then it happens, and then before you know, the bell's gone. It's like, oh, I've only written a paragraph. But getting constructive criticism is like, I mean, there's a couple of people in our group. Mike Wood is a published writer. He's written, he does a couple of different genres. One's about, he tries to keep them separate. One's about camping and in a caravan, and the other is like sci-fi stuff. And he's really, really good at what I would call like soft criticism. So he kind of delivers, he'll ask you a question and he delivers something, and you go, okay, that's giving me something. I always take notes, and people kind of take notes when they give you feedback, and then go away and think about it. So they all have listened to everything that's been produced. They've all listened to all the stories, or greater parts of the stories that I've had published. They've all heard them, and they've all gone, this, that, whatever, you know what I mean? So invaluable, absolutely. Great group of people.
I was just going to ask, there's probably a couple of members in that writing group that I may know. Throw a few names at you, like Mike Jackson, Luca Veste, any of those in that group? Or
no, it's Wirral Writers Club. It's a different group than that one. So Mike Wood's like, he's had more published than any of us, basically. Lynn Quarell, Liz Fisher, David Gordon-Jones. It's a horrible aim. It's horrible to like start naming people, because if I miss somebody out in the moment, they're all going to go, "Why have you mentioned me?" Yeah,
I know, no worries. Yeah, there's a couple of groups, and I wasn't sure which one, but yeah.
There's the Riverside Writers as well. There's the Wirral Writers, and I think there's another one further to the south of Wirral. There's a couple of writing groups.
Yeah, and there's probably a crime writing one as well in Wirral, I think. So maybe that's where I'm getting mixed up on. I could be wrong. Anyway, sorry, Terry, I interrupted you. Go on.
No, I was just going to say how valuable being in a writers group. You mentioned that writing is a lonely occupation, and I think by getting your work out there with the writers group, getting the criticisms and the suggestions for improvements, in a way that takes you to another draft of your work.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you basically you've got you come along with something, and you get all this. I've kind of got a series of questions I write down. So I took basically the full manuscript of something I'm working on at the moment, and it's covered in notes from them now, and it's questions they pose. What is this character's actual, point? What is the point of this? What is the point of the story? What is, and I've written all these notes, and I come home and I sit there and I go, yeah, what is the point? There's got to be a point to it, surely, hasn't there? What are they supposed to be doing? Has this secondary character done enough to warrant actually even being in the story? All that kind of thing. So I do come back and I rewrite, or sometimes what I'll do is if a scene is not taken very well, I will come back like I did from the previous last session, and I rewrote the whole scene again, slightly differently to see if it worked any better. Try to like kind of play around with it, answering the questions that they'd essentially posed as my group, and it actually worked better. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, you've had 5 titles published now, I think it is, contributions along with other writers to some of your short story anthologies. But how did you first start writing? Was it very early in life then? I know you've come on and said you were doing sculpting and this, and then you started writing. So was it more recent then?
So my very, very first story I wrote when I was 7.
Oh, right, yeah.
And,
Okay.
And it was published in the Liverpool Echo.
Brilliant.
Wow. Oh, brilliant.
They used to have a thing called Kids Corner in
I remember.
Do you remember? Yeah, in the 70s.
Yeah.
So they had Kids Corner, and you get a little certificate or something like that. So I was dead proud. And then that was it, because that's just kids' right. And I was excited. Then when I was at uni, I started writing again, but it wasn't really very good. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I just kind of wrote things. And I remember at one point I sent something off to a women's magazine. It was like, oh, I'm going to write one of these, and I got something back saying to the kind of like, this isn't really suitable for us. And I was thinking, oh, okay. And then I just kind of every so often I'd dip in and I'd write stuff, and I did like ideas for children's things. And then when I had my daughter, I started writing little things, and I made up a character, and I made little books for her. And I used to write books about her, but as other characters, but nothing really, you know what I mean? Then I went to this steampunk convention at the Asylum in Lincoln that's held every year. And we took along, and Sam Stone, who's a steampunk and horror writer, she's really known in the whole steampunk world, she was running a workshop, and everybody was asked to go away and that evening write the opening chapter of something, or opening couple of paragraphs, scene, whatever. And I came with mine and I read it out. They were given a bottle of champagne as a prize. I didn't win, but somebody came up to me, another author, Robert Harker, said, we really, really liked it. I think you should carry on with that, and make it. And I went home and I went, think so? My daughter was like, do you know what, Mum? You're always telling me, if somebody gives you an opportunity, take it, do it, because if it doesn't work out, so what? You've lost nothing. She said, you say it to me now. This is me saying it to you. She went, Mum, YOLO, you only live once. So I was like, okay. But then it was shelved. That story was actually shelved, that I was writing. And then I discovered that you could actually submit short stories on, you know what I mean? It's like this sudden world opened up before me. And I started writing other stuff. Then I decided I need to join a group, and I took along some of the other steampunk stories I was doing. So the one I started became Beneath the Skin. Yeah. That was the beginning of that, and it changed quite a bit in the writing. It was originally going to be about, because it's 2 stories, originally going to be about a bloke, but it turned out about a woman. Or both.
Your writing, it covers a wide genre from steampunk to coming of age, Bildungsroman. I've said that right. Yeah. I can't never say that German word. Bildungsroman.
Bildungsroman.
Bildungsroman. Yeah. But it means a young person's sort of spiritual journey, coming of age story. But you write that and through to themes of witchcraft. Do you carry out much research once you got the idea of a theme set in your mind?
So I'm a bit of a kind of like intuitive writer. I don't plan.
Oh.
I'm a pantser, basically.
Ah.
So I have an idea, and either it's usually a tiny idea, or it's a name, or it's a title even sometimes, or something happens and I have this little thing, this little thread, and then I just start writing. That's it. I just start writing. Whatever the idea is, I don't care what it is. I mean, I've got a crime novel that I'm working on that's saved on. I have never written crime. It's a crime caper. I don't know how to do it. So I start writing an idea and I go like that. And I read the first bit out to the group, the Wirral Writers, and they were like, "Oh, that's good." And then I went, "I don't know what I'm doing with it now because I don't know how to do it." So that's on hold.
Yeah.
But but I do research once I've got like the kind of the story out my system, as it were.
Yeah.
Then I go, right, what do I need to know? So for the steampunk one, for Beneath the Skin, I was researching like weapons, politics, historical politics, clothing, fashion, vehicles, drugs, the culture. The rookery in London was absolutely fascinating, and I ended up buying a map, and then I marked out all the different rookeries on my map in pen, and then I drew a route that my main character was going, so that I could actually refer to those places. But I couldn't refer to the places on my modern map, so I had to look up what these places were called in the 19th century, because it had to have some basis in reality. You know, it had to have some sort of like realism in there that people could get, because steampunk is well, I often feel like it has to have some basis in that, even though you've got machines that fly that shouldn't be able to fly, you know. But then when I wrote The Floating Church, that was all about dialect. I spent a lot of time looking at the Cumbrian dialect, and although I don't specify in the story it's Cumbria, in my mind that is it as I'm writing. But I learned things about clothes, the clothes that like women are putting on, like when she's getting dressed in the morning, Susanna's putting on layer upon layer, and you're like, God, this weather must have been horrendous. You know, how they keep chickens, how they kept chickens was like above, like up off the ground, so that foxes couldn't steal their eggs. So you learn all these little interesting things. It's fab. I love it. Love it. And sometimes I do get distracted in the middle of writing, because I'll start writing, like when you're reading, and then I'll go off on a tangent and research something so that I don't get bogged down. But then it all turns into like a tree, and I'm like, oh, I'm over here like this. I get carried away with it. Yeah.
Now you mentioned your books, Beneath the Skin, Part 1 and 2 there. Any plans for a Part 3? I know you said you're doing some crime stuff now, but is there plans for more of that, or is it going to expand?
No. So that Beneath the Skin, the Where Sleeps the Serpent, and the Song of the Nightingale, that's it. That's a duology. What had actually happened is when I wrote it as one book, it was over 100,000 words, and another writer and beta reader was recommended to me, Shona Kinsella. She read it. She did the whole thing, came back with some critiques, and she said, actually, you've got 2 books here. And I was like, oh. And she said, and this is the actual cut-off point. This is where you end book 1. And this is so getting other people to look at your work is, again, I can't say how invaluable it is. So no, that's finished. And the reason it's finished, and I didn't want to do a series. I've never wanted to do series. I didn't want to do a duology. I didn't whatever. Is that I kind of have an idea, I get very excited about it, and I want to get it out. But once it's like, you know, if you overtalk something, then you kind of go, oh, I'm not interested now. Once I've written it, that's it. It's gone. I want to do something else. I want to move on.
Tell us about the Sticks and Stones book, and that's also the name of your website. Is there a reason for that? Sticks and Stones may break my bones.
That's where it comes from. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's something that kind of stuck with me. Like it was something kids said when we were kids, and I remember 2 kids saying it to me when I was coming home from school once, and it just kind of stuck. It always stuck with me. Then we had to write this short story for Wirral Writers. I can't remember what it was about. I don't know, it was about a feeling or something about the bottom of a glass, or the bottom. Oh, it was about something in the bottom of a cup. Sticks and Stones was from this short story, which I really enjoyed writing. Didn't win a prize because the person who read it really liked it. She said it had like this poetic quality, but she didn't really fully understand what was happening in it. And I was like, that's fine. And then I had this idea for just like making a compilation. So I thought, could I do it? Could I actually make one? So I decided I would set myself the target of making a short story, short compilation. And one of them, I had to limit the number. So because I called one of them 9, I was like, I'm going to do 9 stories. And they come right through from the very first one, The Hair of Hob Lane, which I think probably is the weakest one, to be honest with you. That's based on an actual traditional folk tale, and it comes all the way through all the centuries up to modern day, to rescuing Robert, which is actually based on somebody I met told me in that story. What happens in that story is he keeps seeing this figure coming towards him, and he actually did see this figure, this boy. And I had to do, part of my thing was to say, what strategy can we embrace? If I stand at this point here, you tell me where the figure is when it comes. I will stand here in between the two of you, because it frightened him, absolutely frightened him. I know. Which it was just the bizarrest thing I'd ever heard of. So in my story, I decided to turn it into like this witch story where he meets this girl and she ends up helping Robert, rescuing Robert, because it's ultimately he's not got like a mental health problem. He is actually seeing somebody who's trying to contact him because he's sensitive, and she and her mum help break through this and like cure him, I suppose, in a way. You know.
Well, let me ask you about publishing. It looks like you've self-published. Have you been through the pain and the waiting forever and ever and getting no replies sometimes from traditional publishers?
Yes, you can send stuff off and they go like
6 months later.
It's silent. And I've been in like the Twitter community for a bit, writing community on Twitter. And there's a lot of people in there who, it's the same thing. You're waiting a very long time for any response. But I did actually go to there was an event held in Liverpool. And they had some like a publisher and an editor, and they were talking about how there's not enough people coming to work in the industry, so they don't actually have the people to deal with the amount of work that's being sent. But I'd waited. I'm really impatient. It's like when I write something, it's done, get it out there. So I thought, well, give it a go myself. So I thought I'll try it. The first thing I actually had published was in Game Over, which was a horror story, Welcome to the Pleasuredome. And I was like, I can do this. If somebody thinks it's worth publishing in their anthology, then actually I can do this craft. I don't need to carry on painting. I can do this. So I decided to just self-publish, and I had to learn so much.
Yeah, it's a skill by itself, isn't it? Besides the writing, doing the hard part, then it's the marketing.
Yeah, and then I taught myself Photoshop in my spare time.
I could not get my head around that.
Yes, it's quite something. And then I did the covers myself.
Brilliant. I was going to ask you about that.
I did all my books on my work, and people go, you should get the best cover. Yeah, I know that, but I can't afford anybody.
They look professional to me. They look superb. Well, your background, the art background as well, I suppose that must help. The visual design.
Well, yeah, I should think so, but they don't all have. I don't know if they all have the actual look of. I don't know. I think sometimes people think there's something missing from. I mean, I still like Beneath the Skin. I still like.
Looks superb, yeah. What's sitting behind me?
Yeah. It's not an actual hard copy though. I didn't do it as a hard copy. That's the other thing. You've got to do all this farting around on Amazon.
It's a pain in the ass to do the hardcover. It is.
Getting everything to fit their template, and then getting all your interior
the spine, the waist bit, and the bleed on the side of the page.
Yeah, it's the worst, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you keep putting it in, and there's loads of pink. things highlighted. You're like, ah! And then it's like, no, do you want to do an ebook after you've done a paperback? Do you want to do an ebook? And you go, no, I really don't. No, I can't go through it anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done all the covers myself. And a couple of the earlier ones are really shabby.
Well, redo them. That's the beauty of self-publishing. You can redo it, put them back on. They'll be republished within 24 hours.
I suppose, yeah, I suppose. But they're gone. They're like, it's like my daughter's left home. That's it. She's on her own. My book, you're
Fair
done.
enough. Fair enough.
True. Yeah, yourself.
Yeah, true.
So I'm working on like it's like a fantasy. This is going to be a trilogy. Sorry, after what I said before. You big fat liar, Alexandra. You lie like a rug. It's because it grew. It just got so big that somebody at Wirral Writers went, actually, this is a trilogy. And I was like, okay. So
I love it.
Yeah. So there's that. But I also write under a different pen name.
Oh.
Yeah. So I also write as Evie Faulkner, and I did Rock Nest.
Oh, brilliant.
That's mine. So as A. Peel, I'm doing one called The Shimmering, which is like a fantasy kind of thing. And as Evie Faulkner, I'm writing a book about a neglected child. It sounds really sad, but it's not.
Yeah.
You're doing some crime as well.
Yeah.
Well, the crime's on hold. Crime's being shelved. It's like in the back of the cupboard. Yeah.
Excellent.
We connected on Twitter. Are you using other social media platforms for promotion? Are you using Facebook, TikTok, Instagram?
Promotion is a very, very loose term for it.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook, on Twitter, and Insta, and I'm just so bad at it.
So the thing is, it's a different set of skills, isn't it? As a writer, we've mentioned this a couple of times, that it's a lonely occupation. You're there, it's just you and the keyboard and the ideas in your mind.
Yeah.
And to go out marketing, it's at the totally opposite end of the spectrum, isn't it? You got to go on the rooftop banging your drum. Everyone, look at my book that I sat on my own lonely time. Please come and buy my book. This is why people want to connect with the traditional publisher, the impossible gateway into it, because they do that bit of heavy lifting on the marketing.
They do some of it, but I do know somebody who got his first novel published with a traditional publisher, and I said about, you'd be able to do this. He said, but I still have to do a lot of the promotion. And I'm like, well, what do they do?
Yeah, that's the point. They just take more money.
Yeah, they put the book out there. I know a couple of people this has happened to. They will put the book out. They will print it and send it out there and do the initial thing. But it's up to you as the author to still be on social media promoting it. And I've also heard some people say that they were rejected because they didn't have a big enough following.
We've heard that,
yeah, we've heard that.
Yeah.
That is so bad.
It's disgusting, I think. It's a chicken and egg one, isn't it? If you write a brilliant book that becomes a bestseller, then that by itself would build up your following. But if you haven't got any, and it's too much of an ask, I think.
It's all a bit, it's roundabout. It's just a bit, arse about tits, sorry.
Yeah, totally agree, yeah.
Yeah, and I had Trish last week, Trish Finnegan was telling me that her publisher is now pushing her to have a mailing list, a website to do this. And, and of course, you've got to create all that yourself. They're not helping you.
It's rubbish.
Yeah.
So sometimes indie's good, isn't it? Even though it's all your own work, and you've got to push yourself, basically, haven't you? I'm great, basically. You've got to say, I'm great, buy my books. Yeah.
I'm fab, everyone, buy my books.
What advice would you give to a newbie writer, somebody who's brand new, coming into it first time, wants to write a book, says, right, Alexander, where do I start?
Okay, so the very first thing I always say is don't.
I haven't heard that before.
That's a new one.
There it is. That's superb. Don't expect to become a millionaire overnight.
Well, I think the thing is, if you say don't do it to somebody and they go, all right, then I won't, well, then they weren't going to be a writer, were they?
True, that's true.
Yeah. That's true.
Same as with anything. But I would say, like, I mean, it's pretty much the same stuff that you hear everywhere. Is basically read. You know, I had somebody the other day on social media was like, I haven't read a book in 3 years. Wow, and you're a writer. You know, to read anything and everything. You know, don't just read your genre. Read other things and read really good stuff. That we know is really good, and also read the bad stuff, because then you can learn from that. You can go, why is it bad? Ask yourself, rather than just kind of reading it going, oh yeah, I read a book. Ask yourself why you thought it was bad. Be critical, which would say, like, also be self-critical. And I think a lot of people aren't self-critical these days, in my personal opinion. I think you need to be able to take criticism, and you need to be able to look at your work and go, is this any good? Now, I'm not saying what I've written is fabulous. Nothing I've written is fabulous. Nothing I've written is great yet. I'm hoping to get there. I've just really started, you know, I mean, I started writing when I was about 40. So, or 40 something. So it's like, I'm still at the beginning of it. You know, if I'd been writing since I was 20, if I'd carried on instead of going to art college, maybe I'd be really good by now. So I would say be self-critical, read, cultivate endurance. You know, you need to have endurance to get through any of the arts. It doesn't just, people are very lucky if it happens overnight. People are very, very lucky if somebody picks up that very first book and they go, yes, we're going to sign a contract with you. And yeah, if you haven't got, I think you be honest. If you haven't got talent, don't do it. I know. There was a big thing in the 80s, I don't know if you remember, where it was all like, I used to work in community arts, and then in the 80s, everybody could do art. Everybody could be an artist, you know. No, they can't. You can have a go at painting. Doesn't, like, just because I can play chopsticks doesn't mean I'm a pianist. Just because, like, you know what I mean? Just because I can drive a car doesn't make me a Formula One racer.
Well, let's say thanks very much. Really enjoyed spending time with you, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
It's absolutely flown by. It really has. It's been fun, actually.
You've been very quick.
Well, let's have another one with the next book.
I am sweating like a pig. Sorry, but
I'm me.
Throat's boiling, yeah.
I'm very uncouth. Sorry. Say that again. Sorry, Terry.
I can't remember what I said. Oh, let's have another chat up with the next book release with this. Well, with this trilogy that you're working on the crime novel.
Oh my Lord, that's going to be a while.
Even so, let's book it for about 6 months. 6 months time, when it's a bit cooler as well.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see what's happening then.
Okay, but for now, thank you very much and cheers. Have a good night.
You too. Take care, guys.